back again for some more notes. We are going to talk about factoring polynomials. We are going to factor out the GCF. So remember, GCF is your greatest common factor. Okay, so if you want to pause it real quick and write this down, you can, or you can write as we go. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. So factor out the GCF. Before we can do that, we need to look at these two. We need to look at the numbers. So we need to look at 4 and 24. What is the greatest factor of both? So we need to look at the smallest one first. So the only factors of 4 is 1, 2, and 4. Those are the factors. The greatest would be 4, but we need a common one. So let's look at 24. We have 1 will go into it, 2, 3 will go in there, 4 will go in there, 6, 8, 12, and 24. So we're looking for the greatest one that is between them both, and that is actually 4. And I feel like our calculator will do the same thing. Let's see. Math, number. Yeah, no, that's great. It's common GCD. 4, 24. Okay, it's actually GCD in your calculator. So what you do is you go to math, num, and then we want the GCD, greatest common divisor, which is the same thing as greatest common factor. And I'm going to put 4, 24, and it's 4. So 4 is our GCF or GCD. And then you look at the variables next. So our variables are x to the 4 and x to the 3. You choose the smaller of the two. If there's 2, you pick the smallest. If there is one number without a variable, you can't use it. So you always pick the smallest. Smallest exponent will be your factor. So this will be x3. So together, I'm going to factor out 4x3 is my GCF, okay? So when we factor that out, we're going to put it out front and then put parentheses. And basically, we're undoing multiplication. So we are going to divide these. We're going to look and see, okay, 4 times what is going to get me 4? We're going to do our numbers and our variables separate. 4 times what gets 4? 1. X cubed, but then we have the x to the 4, so we're actually going to subtract those. So we are going to divide numbers, subtract exponents. Okay, so I divide 4 by 4, I get 1. X4 and x3, I subtract those, and I get x to the first power. Then I'm going to divide these. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And then x3, 3 minus 3, 0. So it's going to stay like this. And I can actually simplify it further because I don't really need those ones there. So it's a 4x3 and then x plus 6. So in order to check your work, you can multiply it back together. So check. 4x cubed times x would be 4x4. 4x cubed times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. And then you just tack on the variable and exponent. Okay? And that is the exact same. So this is our solution. Let's go to the next one. We have 8y to the 4th minus 24y. So we need to find our GCF. So let's look at the numbers. 8 and 24. So if you want to do it using your calculator, you would go to math, go over to number. We're going to do GCD. Or if you already know this in your head, that's fine too. 8, 24. Oh, I messed up. 24 is 8. So the number is 8. And then the variables y4 and y. So you always pick the smallest exponent, which would just be y. So I'm going to factor out the 8y. Now I'm going to put a parentheses. And I'm going to divide the numbers and subtract my exponent. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. 4 minus, this would be a 1, would be 3. And then negative 24, let's act like this is a negative 24, not minus 24. Negative 24 divided by 8 is a negative 3. Y to the first and first, that will just leave us with no y at all because that'd be 0. And anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay, so now let's simplify even further. I don't need that anymore. So 8y, I don't need that 1 either. Y cubed minus 3. And then we would check by actually multiplying those. 8y times y3, you would add your exponents. 1 and 3 make 4. Then 8y times a negative 3. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. And then tack that y on there. And look, they're the same. Okay, this one we are going to factor and solve it. Actually, let's just factor right now. I'm not going to solve on this one, okay? Let's just ignore that. Okay, so let's factor this. So let's look at the numbers, 2 and 8. What's the GCF of 2 and 8? You need to use your calculator, go ahead. But what's the biggest number that will go into both of these? And that is 2. And then x squared and x, we pick our smallest variable, which would just be x. So that means we're factoring out the 2x. Okay? So I divide. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Then subtract my exponents. That'd be 2 minus 1 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 1 minus 1 is 0, so it's just 4. And then do 2x. Let's get rid of all the 1s. And then we want to check and make sure our answer is correct. So we're going to multiply them. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 4 would be 8x. And that is the same. So I'm going to put a little check mark there. Okay, last one is 6n squared equals 15. Well, I need these to be on the same side. So I'm going to do minus 15n. That will become 0. And then this has an n squared and this has an n. So we're going to leave it separated. And the reason why I had it equal to 0 is because all of these are equal to 0. I needed to move this over. That was the extra step that we needed for this one. All right, so let's look at the GCF of 6 and 15. Negative 15, I guess. So if I'm not sure, then I'm going to do math, num, GCD of 6 and 15. And that's 3. Okay. And then we have n squared and n. So we pick the smallest. So that'd be n. So we would pull out the 3n. And now I look and I divide these. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then I subtract 2 minus 1, which is just 1. And then divide 15 by 3 is 5, but I still have this minus, so minus 5. Into the first, so it's just minus 5. Okay, and then we can check it by multiplying. 3n times 2n. 3 times 2 is 6. N times n is n squared. Then 3n times a negative 5 is negative 15n, which equals 0. If I were to move things back around, then I actually get 6n squared equals 15n. So that's checked off. I forgot to take that off, so it's 3n, 2n minus 5. And if I wanted to, I would probably put equals 0. Okay, so that is it for GCF. See y'all later.